Margulis, host of Passion Project, and today I have with me Tamara Lush. She's a Florida-based author, journalist, and Wattpad star. She's an RWA Rita finalist, an Amtrak writing fellow, and the winner of the George C. Polk Award for Environmental Journalism. Tamara, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, I'm super excited to chat with you. What's really cool about you is that you have such a variety of publishing experiences. You've been published traditionally, you've done independent publishing and small press publishing and self-publishing. Could you lay out the pros and cons? I know, and I don't want it to take up the whole interview time, so I know it's a big question for you, but just a little debrief on what your experiences were with each publishing path.
Yeah, thanks. It's a really good question, and we could probably spend all day talking about this. But the upshot is, I think the lesson that I've learned is that there's no one path to success in publishing. I mean, I think that's that's from the 30,000-foot look at the situation. I've been published by a small press. My first two romances were published by a small digital-only press. I've been indie published. I've been traditionally published in cozy mystery, traditionally published through Wattpad books. And I also have books on Wattpad. I've self-published romance books, and I'm about to self-publish a cozy mystery book. So I've kind of dabbled, and I've done other things like Wattpad, a story sharing site, and other apps, or at least one other app that's similar. So, I feel like I have a good range, and I feel like, authors get really worked up, especially if they're deciding to self-publish or publish on an app. And I think that people need to remember that maybe not every app and not every platform is the best platform for your work. Like, yes, I have books that do well across many platforms. Every platform they've been on, they've done well. But then I have some books that only do well on Wattpad or only do well traditionally published, like the cozy mysteries. So I don't think there's any one path anymore. And I feel like I'm kind of living proof of that.
I love that. It's kind of redefining success, because people can kind of think, I'm only successful if I get this, traditional publishing book deal. And they may not actually be successful on that format, And so I love that you kind of redefine it. And it's really about finding the pocket and the path that really vibes with you, and you vibe with that audience, and it's all working for your book.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the things that I didn't know when I started writing fiction 9 years ago, I went into it thinking, oh, I can do this. I had all the confidence of a beginner. And in that time, I've kind of shifted, and I've kind of shifted in what I write in terms of romance. I write a lot more dark romance. It speaks to me for a variety of reasons, but I also write very light, cozy mystery. I think that when you start and when you're about ready to embark on your first book, maybe take a really good look at what you read and what you write and what you're drawn to. Another thing that I feel like has been really helpful lately is recognizing that I am more of a plot-driven writer as opposed to a character-driven writer. So when I'm writing romance, because romance is a character-driven genre, I really need to keep that in check, and I really need to remind myself I have to focus on the characters and the emotion and the characters' emotional journeys. When I'm writing mystery, that's not as much of a concern. So really think about what you're drawn to and what you're drawn to writing, because it isn't always, it seems obvious at first, but it isn't always obvious.
I love that. I love that. Let's dive into your partnership with Wattpad. Yeah. Which is really cool and inspiring. And so how did you get started with Wattpad, and how did you build a relationship with them?
So interestingly enough, in 2014, when I first started writing, my critique partner, who I met on Twitter, strangely, she's become a dear friend. She writes romance as well. We met on Twitter at the Harlequin So You Think You Can Write contest, and we came together and we started swapping projects. And she messaged me one day and said, hey, I heard of this thing called Wattpad. You might be interested, because I was interested in different publishing paths. And so I started to check it out, and I actually put the first few chapters of my second romance novel there, and it did okay. And then actually I got a publishing contract for it, so I took it down. And I kind of dabbled in Wattpad for a few years. Like I would put up a few chapters of a book that I was self-publishing. I didn't do a whole lot with it. And then actually I started publishing with their competitor, Radish. I posted a book on Radish, and that book ended up being the Rita finalist for erotic romance. And then I started thinking about how there was a lot of synergy between Radish and Wattpad, and I started posting more and more books on Wattpad. And my readership on Wattpad grew more than Radish and more than KU. And I was seeing just more interaction with fans and just more readers by the day. I had a lot of content at that time, and I was just putting more and more up. I experimented with a few things. And then Wattpad, at one point, I had a lot of reads on one particular book because I was already sort of writing in serial format anyway. And they asked me if I'd like to participate in a beta for a paid stories program. And I think this was back in 2017 or 2018, not long after I finaled in the Ritas. And so I said yes. I thought it was really interesting. And so I just kept building, relationships with Wattpad, and they kept being extremely sweet and professional. And it just took off from there. And they offered me a 3-book deal with their publishing company. And then I was in the paid program, and now I'm in creators, and I have a bunch of stuff going on with them. I kind of took all of my self-published romance off of Kindle Unlimited to put it into Wattpad, because at the time I thought, and I still think this, at least in terms of romance, I thought that the marketing they would give was worth it, because I was self-publishing and spending a lot in ads, like a couple $100 a day in ads. And I was making money, but I wasn't making the profit margin that I thought I probably should. Like, I'm no business person. So I thought it would probably be better if I could just make money and have somebody else market for me, which is, the dream of being a writer. And so Wattpad has allowed me to do that. They really handle the marketing of my books. It's not that I don't self-promote, because I do, but I don't have to spend money on ads. The self-published romance market is really competitive, and there's a lot. And if you're not really tied to a particular subgenre or niche, then I think it's harder. And my romance stories are not a niche. They're not like monsters or hockey, or they're more like these blends of romance, women's fiction, kind of almost literary fiction / romance, like erotic romance, a lot of them. So it was a weird mashup. And the Wattpad fans, I think the Wattpad readers really accept like mashups of genres much better than, traditional book readers. So I think that's why I found success there.
I love that. What do you think? What do you think makes the book successful in the Wattpad space? Like, what did they do really well to support you as an author, or what did you find really work for you on that platform?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I think one, on the Wattpad side, their algorithm, which obviously I don't know, but their algorithm, I think, has worked in my favor. Whatever their algorithm is, it's worked in my favor. I also think that the Wattpad readers are very diverse and very international. So some of my books probably resonated with them because of that, because I have some diverse heroes in a couple of my more popular books. And I think also it's because my particular voice is like bordering on YA / new adult, but the stories are about very adult situations. I don't write about high schoolers, not really about college. Like a lot of my most popular book, strangely, I know a lot of people say, oh, Wattpad is just for kids, it's just for young readers, it's for teenagers, it's fan fiction. But my most popular book on Wattpad with 6 million reads is actually about a woman in her mid-30s.
Wow.
So, and she's a newspaper publisher, and every publisher rejected it. My agent couldn't sell it. And that was the Rita finalist, and people on Wattpad love it, even if they're teenagers. So I think it's the voice sounding younger, but it's about older characters, which really resonates with younger people, because they want to think about, I remember when I was 16 and reading books that maybe were a little more mature than I was, but they seem to love that. And I love writing it because I'm like 16.
Me too. Me too. I love it. What have you learned during your time in partnership with Wattpad that has helped you as an author and with your book marketing and book publishing strategies?
Well, I think that the Wattpad experience with publishing is really unique. Other publishers I've had, other traditional publishers, they've been wonderful, but they have not given the amount of support. Wattpad gives a lot of support, and they also, they're constantly in touch about things. Like they email me a lot, and they include me in things like videos and social media posts and ask for my input. So right there, that's very different. And the fact that they've had a WattCon too, they have conferences entirely for their writers and readers. You don't see like Simon and Schuster just having a conference for their writers. So it's a really interesting, it's become like a really interesting ecosystem, and I've made a lot of friends there, both within the staff and with other writers. And it's a really cool and just a really comfortable ecosystem that's an alternative to Amazon. And as much as, we all need Amazon. I'm expecting packages today, and I'm self-publishing a mystery with them exclusively later this year. It's nice to have an ecosystem outside of the Zon.
Love it. Love it. How do you decide which books you're going to publish where?
Well, all of my romance is with Wattpad. So anything I write with romance is with Wattpad, either, on their platform for a published book or for their app Yonder. So that's a no-brainer. I have no desire to publish with any other publisher in romance or to self-publish in romance. With Cozy Mystery, I have a publisher for one series, and I'm self-publishing another series. A future series, I'm not sure. It'll either be self-published or I'll see if my agent can sell it. I think that Cozy Mystery does not do quite as well, sadly, on Wattpad. I think largely because the readership is older, obviously. My readers on Wattpad really want to see, the angst, the steam, the sexy times, the back and forth with a couple. They're not so into like solving crimes and being cozy.
Love it. For our self-published authors that are watching this, what marketing strategy or approach has been most effective for you in promoting and selling your books?
Oh, goodness. I feel like I think as writers, we all have insecurities, and one of mine is I'm terrible at marketing. And I'm not sure that's entirely true, but I think the best marketing thing you can do is get a great cover. And that's easier said than done, because what you personally like may not be what resonates with the readers. And that's kind of a hard, that's kind of a hard lesson to learn, because what I think is, especially for romance, because romance is so visceral and emotion centered. So what, what guy who's shirtless, I think is, handsome, would be good for a book cover. That may not be what the general population thinks is sexy. So really getting a great cover and sort of divorcing yourself from that process is really difficult, but really essential. You just cannot, like, what you like maybe is not what other people like. And that is to me, a shocking and painful thing. And it took me a long time to learn that. And that's the other reason why Wattpad's really helpful, is that they are there to, like any good publisher should, look at the market and see what covers are working and what covers aren't, and actually just to bat around ideas. That Wattpad's been invaluable for that, like just having somebody else to talk about it with.
Yeah, that's a really great tip about the cover, and really important to note that what the author likes might not resonate for the audience. So thank you for that.
And it's hard in romance, because romance, there's a lot of subtleties, like man with shirt, man without shirt, clinch cover, just one woman. It's very, and what I think might look, super classy and sexy, like what we all think is romantic and desirable, that's really highly specific to us. And it just took me a long time. Like in Cozy Mystery, I can nail the cover. I know what a good Cozy Mystery cover is. I can nail that every time. But with romance, it's so very hard.
Oh, wow. I love it. I love that. I love that little peek behind the curtain. How do you prepare for a book launch and what has worked for you?
Well, that's a good question. I'm preparing kind of for a book launch. I'm preparing for 3 book launches now. I have a book coming out in September. And I have a cozy coming out in September, a cozy coming out in January, and then the Wattpad book in March. So I'm kind of always, because of the 2 genres, I'm kind of always preparing for some book launch or another. I think the best way to prepare for a book launch is to really, for me anyway, is to try not to do it all. Even though I'm a full-time writer, I need to focus on writing the next books. And not get in this trap of, oh my God, I've got to do everything. I mean, I think we all get into this trap. I've got to be on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. And I think it's okay to like pick one and promote yourself there and then kind of mail it in on the others. Like I'm not doing any, I've given myself permission not to be on TikTok this summer. Like there's no, it takes away from a lot of writing time. And really the best thing you can do to market a book is to write another book. And so just don't freak out that you're not on every social media site. Like my social media site that I love, that I'm on almost every day, I am on every day, is Instagram. I love it. And it allows me to, distribute other content elsewhere. And so I do. But I've given up trying to be all things to all people and everywhere at once, because it's just not possible. Like I used to be a journalist. I was a journalist for a long time. I got really burnt out because I covered many serious and terrible things. And I don't want to get burned out in this career. Like I want time to go to yoga and to take a walk and to hang out with my dog. I need to live my life. I'm not put on this earth to work.
Yeah, that's a really great golden tip. Is the best way to market a book is to write another book. I love that. Do you have any advice for first-time authors specifically who are still finding their audience, finding the right platform to show up on, and moving that step?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Wattpad is great. I would encourage anybody to try Wattpad if they're a first-time author, or if they're an author who feels like they've lost their creative spark. I actually know somebody else who suggests, like they're actually a writing coach, and I spent some time with this person, and he actually suggests to people that if they're having a creative writing slump, to go write something for free for Wattpad to regain the joy. And there is a lot of joy to be gained on Wattpad, because the barrier to entry is 0. You can start writing today, and you can start getting feedback today. And it kind of gets you on this path of thinking, how do I get more eyeballs on my book? It gets you thinking about things like, what hashtags do I use for my story? How do I categorize my story? How do I classify my story? It kind of gets you going without the stakes of, oh my God, I've just published a book and it's on Amazon forever now because I've published a paperback. So it gives you it gives first-time authors, especially young authors, a trial run, or many trial runs. So I think that's really invaluable. And honestly, the community on Wattpad, the commenters have, by and large, I would say 99% of the people have been super pleasant and kind. The comments are very kind, and I appreciate that.
Love it. I love it. Yeah, let's talk about monetizing. You've done so many things. I know Wattpad has so many opportunities for how to monetize your book and make a living from them. So you were a full-time journalist, and you've left that now.
I have, yeah, in 2021. I had always sort of thought that I was going to be a full-time writer. I about 9 years ago, I thought I need a plan B from journalism, because journalism is not the most stable industry, as we all know. Even though I loved being a journalist, it was really my first love, continues to be my first love. But some challenges here in America politically have made being a journalist a difficult job, and the pandemic and mass shootings basically took the joy out of it for me. So I had to do something else for my own mental health, and creating worlds of fiction is a really great thing for your mental health, as it turns out, or my mental health. But in terms of monetization, Wattpad has been huge because they have so many opportunities. You know, I think there's a lot of opportunities for people now like that, but you know, expanding not just Wattpad, but subscriptions, Patreon, Kickstarter. I think there's a lot of options. And so I would suggest for newer people or people trying to find their footing for monetization to really look at where people are successful. Like in cozy mystery, I know people are successful in KU or in traditionally published, but with like dark romance, Wattpad's great. Yonder is great. Subscriptions are great. And Wattpad, you know, they are dipping their toe and have dipped their toe in that with some authors too, the subscription idea. So I think it's interesting to pick a platform and then see where you can go with it, but also look at what others are doing in the genre.
Great advice. Great advice. How do you see self-publishing and book marketing evolving? Or even just publishing? How do you see it evolving? Or what do you think we're going from here?
I think subscriptions will be really a big thing going forward. There's some really interesting people doing things in the subscription space that I think for people who write, especially niche content, it's really going to take off for them. I think we'll see more serial fiction apps and fiction apps. And I think serial fiction, like on Wattpad, you know, true serial fiction where you release a chapter or two every week or three, and really do long serial fiction stories similar to soap operas or telenovelas. I think that that's going to be huge. And Wattpad is obviously the biggest and sort of first app website to share those kinds of stories. I think serial fiction is sort of the wave of the future because people read on their phones, they read everywhere. And I just think the format is so much fun and allows for a lot of connection between reader and writer. So I think serial fiction is the future, personally.
Very cool. So speaking of that, do you have any advice for people who aren't familiar with the format or the style of content? Like, what are some things to keep in mind as far as creating serial fiction?
Yeah, I would say read something that's underway, read something that's being released by an author and follow along with it so you can feel that visceral reaction of getting a notification of a story that you love on your phone. I would also say really study the art of the cliffhanger because every chapter should have a cliffhanger, and really study things like telenovelas, serials on television, like, you know, I think we're all extremely lucky to have 3 shows right now that are perfect examples of serials. Like the best examples maybe ever, which are Succession, Ted Lasso, and the TV show Barry, which are all ending in the coming week, and I'm devastated. But those are all really great examples of how to write cliffhangers and serials, like just a masterclass with those 3 shows alone. It's not hard to find good serials on television. And I would recommend those 3.
I'm curious, how much do you let reader feedback, or if, you know, in the process of serials or series, feedback from your readers influence future content that you create?
Yeah, occasionally, but I'm usually writing so far ahead that by the time the reader reads it, I'm kind of 20 episodes ahead. I do, if I'm not so far ahead, sometimes I like to see what they're thinking and where they think the story is going, and then work that. I don't always like to give the readers what they want. My readers, especially for, you know, like dark new adult romance and other sort of new adult romances, they really like to think things like, oh, the heroine's pregnant. And I like to thwart that. Or the other one that I love to subvert is the other woman. You know, I think we're so used to having the evil other woman trope that I often introduce another woman, and she could be evil, and a lot of people start hating her, and then she becomes the best friend of the heroine. That's like a hallmark of my books. They end up becoming good friends, and they, you know, kick butt together and do fun things, and they actually become closer than the heroine and hero sometimes. So I love subverting that trope. And then by the end, the readers are like, oh God, I love this character, when they hated her at first. So I love subverting their expectations.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And that works for you.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. To wrap up, okay, I have two more questions. What do you think is the most important thing authors need to do today when it comes to marketing their books for today's audiences?
I mean, some people just don't want to market, and some people don't like to market. And, you have to, but it's unfortunate. I would just say pick whatever social media that you can stand. I know all of it is like vaguely unpalatable for a variety of reasons, or for some important reasons in some cases. But, I'd say pick a social media that you don't hate. And that could be your newsletter too. And just really try to build that, like really try to focus on one, just try to be real and authentic with your readers and just explain what you're writing. Sometimes, but also by the same token, don't be embarrassed that you're marketing a book. Somebody early on told me, like, you wrote a book. Don't be embarrassed to share it with people. Like, if you're not excited about your book, then who else is going to be excited about your book? So be excited about your book. It's okay. I think especially as women, we think, oh, we're not supposed to self-promote. We're not supposed to be pushy about it. Well, why? Like, only men can be pushy about their books? Like, no, that's not. Just be excited about your book, and other people will get excited too.
Love it. And lastly, what do other authors need to know about today's audiences and what they want in order to get their own message and book heard, noticed, remembered?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can speak to that on Wattpad. I think that readers on Wattpad really want smart heroines. They really want heroines that are not too stupid to live. I think they want different heroines. I think they want diverse characters. I think, especially on Wattpad, which is extremely diverse. There are 90 million readers a month there, and many of them, I have some stories where only 20% of my readers are from the United States. So my stories are resonating with people in India and Germany and the Philippines. And one of my best readers, she's become a friend, and we talk every day on Instagram. She's from Iran, and she speaks multiple languages, and she lives in Iran, which, you would, as an American, I think, oh, well, how can she read steamy books? But really, she's super into it. And there's plenty of people like that who you wouldn't normally think, but either they can't get Amazon or they won't get Amazon. And so Wattpad's this perfect place for them. So I would say, they want interesting, diverse stories, and they're craving them. And so give them what they want.
That's exciting. Super, super fun. Tamara, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience today?
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to look at my website, it's tamaralush.com, or under my mystery name, taralush.com, TARALUSH. I write it under two names. And Wattpad, my username is Tamara Lush.
Awesome.
No spaces.
Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned. We've got more great interviews on the way, and we'll see you soon. Bye.